First it was Porzingis, then Holiday, and now Luke Kornet. To the casual fan, this may sound like a footnote in an already turbulent offseason. But what if this was the quiet collapse nobody saw coming? What if Luke Kornet's exit is less about talent lost and more about what's unraveling behind closed doors in Boston? The San Antonio Spurs have just signed Luke Kornet, the same Kornet who quietly became the Celtics' most stable defensive fallback last season, and while his name won't light up headlines the way a Tatum or a Brown would, his departure might just be the biggest warning sign yet. Not because of the player he was, but because of what it reveals about the chaos currently brewing inside the walls of TD Garden. Ask yourself, why would a guy like Kornet, who carved out a niche in the league's most dominant system, walk away? From a championship culture, why would a team that just lost its defensive anchor Porzingis and its veteran floor general Holiday allow its only functional backup rim protector to leave for nothing? Because maybe things are worse than they're letting on. Let's get one thing clear: Luke Kornet was not just a feel-good story or a quirky cult hero. He was, in tactical terms, a plug-can't-play interior presence who understood his limitations better than most in the league. He wasn't trying to be a star, he was trying to win. He bought into Joe Mazzulla's defensive schemes, executed drop coverage with robotic precision, and most importantly, never broke the system. In a Celtics team built on rhythm and cohesion, Kornet was the glue guy you didn't notice until he was gone, and now he's headed to the Spurs, a franchise with a generational talent in Victor Wembanyama and a front office that rarely makes accidental signings. Don't be surprised if Kornet suddenly levels up in San Antonio. The same things Boston took for granted, his timing, his positioning, his feel for the game, might become weapons in a Spurs system designed to maximize silent contributors. And if that happens, fans in Boston won't just regret letting him go. They'll be furious at why he had to go. Is Hugo Gonzalez the hidden gamble that could break Boston's championship blueprint? At first glance, it all seems like a feel-good story. A 19-year-old from Spain gets his dream call from the NBA's most decorated franchise. Hugo Gonzalez, drafted 28th overall by the Boston Celtics, stepped in front of the cameras and called it a dream come true. But behind the smiles and soft headlines, a far more complex and controversial narrative is unfolding, because while the Celtics celebrate their shiny new toy, the rest of us should be asking a much harder question. Was this pick a reach born out of desperation, or is Brad Stevens playing a dangerous game with Boston's immediate future? Let's be brutally honest. The Celtics are not in a position to wait and see. They're not in rebuilding mode. They're supposed to be defending a title. And yet, as veterans like Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Luke Kornet walk out the door, Stevens just used a first-round pick not on a polished, collegiate standout, not on a plug-and-play shooter, but on an overseas teenager whose biggest strength is still labeled potential. Yes, Hugo Gonzalez is an athletic marvel. Yes, he's played for Real Madrid and worn Spain's national jersey. But the gap between European League experience and NBA readiness is not just a step, it's a chasm. And Joe Mazzulla's system isn't exactly forgiving for young wings who struggle from beyond the arc. So why now? Why him? And more importantly, what does this pick reveal about the Celtics' next move? The real story here might not be about Gonzalez at all. It might be about how Boston's front office is signaling a quiet shift. A shift from competing now to experimenting later. With Jason Tatum likely to miss the majority of next season and no clear frontcourt identity left after the Porzingis trade, drafting Hugo Gonzalez feels less like a plan and more like a pivot, a signal that the Celtics might already be recalibrating their expectations behind the scenes. And here's the twist that should make every fan nervous. This isn't a stash pick. They aren't sending Hugo back to Europe to refine his game. They want him on the roster next season. In a system that demands high-level perimeter decision-making, off-ball spacing, and flawless defensive switches, that's a lot to throw on a teenager with no NBA reps. Paul Pierce drops bombshell on Celtics front office. Don't trade Jaylen Brown, will haunt you. What if the Celtics are about to make the biggest mistake of the decade? While Boston scrambles to cut costs and reshape its roster under the suffocating second apron, one voice has cut through the noise, and it's a voice that carries weight in the city of banners. Paul Pierce isn't just asking the Celtics to keep Jaylen Brown. He's warning them. During a recent appearance on Podcast P with Paul George, the Celtics legend peeled back the curtain and exposed what many are afraid to say aloud. Just about money anymore, this is about legacy. You're in the business of making money. Yeah, you want to win, but you want a cheaper version to try to win, Pierce said, with a tone that sounded less nostalgic and more urgent. I hope. They don't trade JB though. As long as you've got Tatum and Brown, you can figure out the other pieces. That's not just supporteeds, a strategic warning. And it's not coming from a talking head on TV. It's coming from a finals MVP who knows what it takes to win in Boston, who knows the emotional and cultural weight of breaking apart a championship. Core too early, but is anyone in the Celtics front office actually listening? Because let's look at the situation with clear eyes. Jaylen Brown is 28, entering his prime. Tatum's 26 and facing a brutal Achilles injury. Yet in the midst of that, uncertainty, the team offloaded both Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Luke Kornet followed them out the door. In the name of financial flexibility, Boston is gutting the roster piece by piece, while whispers grow louder that Brown could be next, and Pierce, in his classic no-filter delivery, basically said what fans are too afraid to consider if they trade Brown. It might not just cost them wins, it might cost them the future. They still got a long way, Pierce continued. Look at KD. He's 37 and still playing at a high level. Steph, 37. LeBron, 40. So they're in their prime. For the next 6 years, let's see what's up with these two. Translation: you don't burn a house down when the foundation is still strong. You don't tear apart a proven championship duo when both players are still ascending. And you definitely don't do it just to save luxury tax dollars. But maybe that's exactly what Boston is doing. And here's the part nobody wants to talk about. Brown isn't just another all-star. He was the engine during last year's finals, the defensive anchor on Luka Doncic, the momentum shifter, the MVP. In the biggest moments, he didn't flinch. And now he might be traded so Boston can escape the second apron. If you think this is just about contracts, you're missing the real drama. This is about philosophy. It's about a front office that once promised to run it back, now seemingly prioritizing tax management over championship windows. It's about an ownership group that pushed Ullin for a title only to pivot immediately after winning it. Kevin Garnett sends stern warning to Celtics brass. You don't trade a warrior like Jrue Holiday for flash. What if the Celtics just traded away the soul of their team and didn't even realize it? Kevin Garnett isn't mincing words. In a recent All the Smoke podcast appearance, the Celtics legend and Hall of Famer ripped into Boston's decision to ship Jrue Holiday to Portland in exchange for Anthony Simons and a pair of second-round picks. While the move may have made financial sense on paper, Garnett sees something far more dangerous brewing beneath the surface, a franchise making short-sighted decisions that could cost them more than just games. I don't know if I would have given up Jrue Holiday for scoring, Garnett said. You don't see all the small, intangible things that Jrue brings. You missed all this other S***T that he did that impacted the game. This wasn't just a hot take. This was a Hall of Famer sounding the alarm. Because, let's call this what it is. The Celtics didn't just trade a player. They traded away leadership, poise, and defensive structure, all in the name of cap relief. And Garnett sees the trap. Holiday's numbers were never going to wow you. That's the point. His value was always hidden between the lines, timely switches, silent communication, elite screen navigation, fourthquarter.com, and an ability to make stars uncomfortable without ever dominating the ball. Those are not traits you replace. Those are traits you depend on, especially in May and June. And this trade wasn't about maximizing talent. It was about dodging financial penalties under the second apron. But here's the truth. Garnett understands better than most. You don't win titles by prioritizing luxury tax efficiency. You win by riding with warriors who show up when it matters most. And Holiday, he's that guy. So ask yourself, what's Boston really doing here? Are they building toward another banner? Or are they secretly preparing for a reset disguised as a retool? Anthony Simons is explosive, no question. He's young, he can score in bunches, and he might even be a starter in the right system. But he's also a defensive liability. He's never sniffed the all-defensive team. And the idea that he can seamlessly step into Jrue's role ignores a harsh reality. Offense is optional in the playoffs. Defense is mandatory. And what did Boston just give up? A 6-time all-defensive guard. The man who took on Luka Doncic and helped neutralize him in the 2024 finals. The man who is willing to do the dirty work no one else wanted: fight over screens, contest without fouling, rotate with intelligence. Garnett isn't just nostalgic. He knows what winning basketball looks like. And this ain't it.